Good morning and welcome to the Point. It is Thursday, May 6th, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN, Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV, channel 7, 11, and 20. Good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9, and the folks on the Party Grenada and Go To Fet Facebook pages. Happy to have you joining us this morning. We apologize for the late start. We were just ironing out some technical issues here in the studio, but it is all rectified and we're ready to go. My virtual guest this morning is the Farmers and Fisherfolk representative in the Senate, the Honorable Roderick St. Clair. Good morning, Senator St. Clair. How are you doing?
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning to all our farmers, listeners and viewers, both at home and overseas. And I want to wish them a very good day, and good life. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So let's...
I'm okay for the moment.
Nice to know. So let's get started, Senator. This morning, let's start with an overview of the work that you've done over the past, since the last time we spoke, actually, and what are some of the things that you've been able to do as the Farmers representative in the Upper House?
Yes, well, what I've been able to do in the Upper House is a question, meaning that we have not met since sometime in January was the last sitting of the Senate. So we still await the next sitting whenever that would be called. But in the meantime, my representation is beyond actually being in the halls of the Parliament, but is connecting to service and representation outside of it. And so on the outside, what I've been doing since we spoke is a couple of things. One of the significant activity that we did on the 8th of April, we had a consultation of livestock and poultry farmers in St. Andrews. It was a venue actually. And it was very well, we didn't have like 100 persons per se, but what was important is that we had the different sectors from rabbits to poultry, to goat and so on was present. And a series of issues were raised. And that I would have submitted through a press statement sometime earlier this week. And of course, I would forward this as an official copy to the minister eventually so that he can see what are on the conscience of our farmers specific to livestock and poultry. That is one activity. Mm-hmm. I've also since met last week, Thursday, I would have met with as a follow-up, met with the St. Patrick's Goat Farmers Association, Ms. Noss and a team. And so we could speak about that later on, what they are doing. I've also only last evening met with the Poultry Association. They have challenges with the input and industry as well as with the association. And it was good to see the turnout yesterday. And of course, that the plans for having fresh elections in the middle of July so that they can have a duly constituted executive and get their business going again. So these, to me, were 2 or 3 significant matters that took place, of course, with other media appearances and releases discussing matters connecting to the farmers of Grenada.
What have been
competing and of course our fishes.
What have been some of the biggest concerns that farmers, fisherfolk want you to address, whether it's in the Upper House or even outside of the Parliament building?
Yeah. But because there are a lot of discussions, a lot of things are happening in the back end, apart from those things that I mentioned, which is an important point. And if we take from fisheries, for example, one of the biggest challenges we have right now with fisheries is related to the export of fish. Not that we don't have a market, but the freight. And it's not only about fishing, but the exporters, fresh produce exporters, other exporters, they're having challenges because the main outlay of Grenada is the Amerijet, which has some unreliability issues, but which also have economic issues in terms of the economic viability of those flights into Grenada. What are they going back out with? What are they bringing in? These are some concerns based on information that I would have received and the rate that they have been charging, is it economically viable? So sometimes they may not be coming, they may not raise the price, but is it really economically viable activity, and what are the interventions? How can we do more in that way? So that is a major issue. I've spoken out to a few of the fishers organizations. Southern Fishermen has reached out to me also in this regard. So if you look around, you'll see on the Carenage in Guave, out of the fisher boats are just sitting there. Fish actually is being sold. Someone told me they got fish for $4 a pound yesterday because of this challenge. Of course, we need to look, which I advocate strongly, to look and see how we can do some sort of value added through pickling, through drying saltfish and so on, is something I think we need to look at. So that is a major issue, because it bothers me, because the challenge we face now is we have we have the fish as our number one agricultural export, so that's a big issue. There are some other issues that we can speak about. The issue of the Prix Larceny continues to be a big issue. I know there is action. I've been agitating with the minister on those matters. I've suggested some ideas, but we need to start seeing results. The farmers are still hurting, and that's a big issue. We need to have more force, more presence. If something is killing you, unless you want to die, you then take a drastic action to resuscitate yourself. And I think right now we are at the stage where we need surgery before we end up in the ICU or something like that with Prix Larceny in this country. I think, though, that a major issue that came out of the consultation, and something that my dear Senator Clouden would have agitated in the past very forcefully, is the issue of the Prix Larceny Fund. Now, the Prix Larceny Fund, as catered for in the Act of 1995, Section 17, speaks to the setting up of a Prix Larceny Fund, which would be housed and controlled by the Minister of Finance. And on the direction of the Minister for Agriculture, such fund will compensate farmers who would be aggrieved, lost products through, whether it's someone going to chop up the stuff or whether it's due to Prix Larceny, as the case may be. And so if, for example, you are convicted blossom and you don't have the money to pay right now, you can use funds out of these monies to pay the farmer so that he can continue his business, or she can continue their business. And then when you do pay, this money goes back into this fund. My question, which I would ask at some time to the government, is, does this fund really exist? How much money is in the fund? How much persons would have been paid out, say, in the last year or two from this fund? These are questions we need to know, because farmers want to know, because there are cases where they are not being compensated. For example, one farmer lost a pig, and I think they sent the perpetrator to prison, and he got nothing. I mean, how do we want farmers to continue their business? So government and the whole judiciary, magistracy, has to be on board. We have just revamped the Act in 2020, which is good. But if we only have an act and we're not acting, then what is the purpose? And so farmers actually in that consultation in Grenville was concerned about the implementation, taking action. That was only yesterday again in the poultry meeting. That was another concern that was aired. When I met with the fishermen in Granans, fishers, they have the same concern. So the issue of action, and it doesn't mean that you have to take a lot of action, but at least do one at a time, so we could bring some kind of relief for our farmers. That is a big issue. Another concern from the livestock industry, the whole issue of housing. Because, we want to move to the issue of zero grazing, which is more environmentally proper, etc. And we say we want to be moving to all these climate smart approaches. Then it means that we have to house. Some people, you have to have money to build these houses. So how do we ensure that these concessions and other things are available for these inputs for building these houses? How do we ensure that maybe government, and I say maybe government, or maybe the industrial corporation, because that is part of industrialization, agro-industrialization, construct houses for animals throughout the country? Because the issue of farmers there are individuals who own animals. They have no place to tie them, they don't even have lands. But we have to appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit. So how do we encourage that? By creating those sort of what I call agriculture infrastructure. Agriculture infrastructure is not only about fixing roads, it's about all these other things. And our livestock industry is in a real bad state. But it has a lot of opportunities when you look at the imposition of live animals of the St. Vincent, all of those things. So we need to see what is the problem we have. So we keep talking about food import bill, but the question, what are we doing? Telling us eat local, but eat local where is it? And then we could speak about those other things. So that, I think, has been a major issue. The issue of labor continue to be a major concern, and I think that from dialogue with the Ministry of Agriculture, with the Minister, we have looked at different approaches, not only doing land clearing, but how do we provide for slaughtering animals, helping to pick up eggs, even in the nutmeg. For example, there are farmers who have problem in harvesting the nutmeg. They might be elderly. How do we innovate in those areas? How do you resuscitate abandoned land? So you create a labor to solve a problem that you want to really address. So these were some of the major things I would recall across the sector. Of course, the market, a big issue, particularly now. What was good is that the poultry farmers yesterday were very happy and saying, look, they are really optimistic that the country is going to open very soon. And so they are looking up. But they have challenges. The issue of the cost of feed continues to be a major challenge. We know the government said that they were going to meet. I have a motion within the parliament asking government to review the whole Caribbean agro-industry agreement, and they have already started before the debate even starts, which is good. I compliment them on that. But at the same time, they have gone cold, unless there is some talks happening and we're not aware, because the Poultry Association was said would be consulted within the process. Nothing has happened as far as the Poultry Association is aware, neither I am aware. So we're really calling on the Minister, Dabrio, Minister for Trade, who is leading on that process. We want him to report and tell us where we are. If they are having challenges, say, look, guys, we have some little challenges. We are strategizing. The farmers have birds waiting to be slaughtered. They're buying more birds, buying more chicken. That is another issue, because right now the Poultry Association is bringing in chartered flights to bring in their animals, their birds. So we have to look and see how we can reduce that cost, because the cost is almost about $3,000 addition to bring it in. That's a big cost. So you would see even the cost of the chickens are also increasing. So we can see a rise very soon in poultry products. I know the farmers already started discussing that. But of course, from the retailers and the supermarkets, they are holding off and sort of say, no, we cannot pay this now because consumers cannot handle. So I'm calling on the government in that same regard to look and see how we can ease the pain. We know that there is a VAT 50% on the frozen chicken, local chicken. And if we can have some consideration for our farmers, some consideration for the nation in this regards, in these tough times. I heard the Prime Minister speaking about the stimulus package that the government is looking at, and maybe that could be one component of the stimulus package in reducing that burden for the consumers and enabling the industry. Another area we need to look at, and I am not 100% correct, I was trying to reach out to one of the officers this morning, is the issue of agricultural inputs. And I think again, Senator Clouden may have spoken about that in the past. Is it price control? What is the margins we are putting on fertilizers and other agrochemicals? And when I say agrochemicals, I know we have moved a lot to safer chemicals, more biochemicals, if you want to say that. So don't go with the notion that I'm promoting bad chemicals and hazardous chemicals. But we need to look and see how can we. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to do price control and everything. We can look and see what is the essential. Just like how we have the basket of goods for when they're doing the consumer price index, we can look at it also for that, because while we boasting and look at consumer price index and basket of goods, all of these things add to the value of this basket of goods. So if we really want to look at that, I think we need to consider some of those. So it's a lot I've said. There's more things we could talk about down the road, but these are a lot of things that are happening in the mix in the meantime.
those are a lot of issues, and like you said, there are more. How are you able to address them, help bring comfort to farmers, let them know that you're tackling the issues, or at least bring a solution to at least one of those issues?
No, but all those issues have been addressed. All that I'm talking about to you here is not things that I have in my mind. These are things that actually are engaged in purposefully, and the government is one of the main aim. The associations I've been speaking to, the different industry persons. So, for example, I was present, and we have to compliment the Grenada Development Bank, Mr. Lord and his team, for a nice session they had put on only last week to look at the record keeping and so on for farmers and extension officers. This is very good. And we had a lot of discussion there, myself and him, and we have to reach out to our good friend, Mr. Tedo, out in the IDC, where we can look and go into details here. So that is another discussion that we are having, because part of my role has to do a lot with interfacing and coordinating with the agencies on behalf of the farmers. So, for example, this morning, and we need to recognize the issue of World Compost Week. I'm not sure how much persons are aware of that, but I know the Grenada Solid Waste Authority has been doing a lot of work on that. And Ms. Julian and myself and I was over the GIS this morning, and it's not competing because that's government, so I could say GIS, I guess. So we were there this morning speaking about initiatives that the GCAD has been doing with regards to the nutmeg shell and making it into a potting mix and so on for farmers. And all that is part of the whole agricultural waste resource. And so we saw how can we get our farmers, how can we get our household to use more of our agricultural waste, our resource, for composting, for livestock feed. And so we want to explore some forum where we could the sector. So all of these.
Okay, we seem to be having some connectivity issues with Senator St. Clair. You're experiencing some connectivity issues, Wi-Fi connection. Can you still hear me, Senator St. Clair? Yes, you keep dropping in and out. The Wi-Fi on your end is not fully cooperating with us. So while we see what we can do, let me take a quick break, and then we are going to come back and continue the discussion with the farmers' representative in the Senate, the Honorable Roderick St. Clair. To the point, we'll be right back.
Listen to the ocean, and you will hear a cry for help. The ocean is hurting, and we are the source of the hurt. But we can stop and start to heal our ocean by preventing pollution from getting into our waterways. It can start with you. Join an active organization, or better yet, make a personal commitment. Commit not for just one day in the year, but for the rest of your life. Let's dispose of our plastic and other waste responsibly, and let's start building resilience. Let the healing begin.
This message is brought to you by the OECS Commission with funding from the Government of Norway. Remlit, tackling ocean pollution from tooth to sooth.
A message from Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority on the occasion of the International Composting Awareness Week.
On the occasion of International Composting Week, under the theme Grow, Eat, Compost, compost repeat. We at the Northeast Farmers Organization want to encourage our citizens to use compost for the growing of their crops and the flowers in their homes and around the environment. Composting is better to use instead of the chemical fertilizer. There are more than one reason. When you use the material from your kitchen waste to do composting, you are reducing the amount of unnecessary gas in the environment. You are reducing the amount of material that's sent to the landfill. 40% of what is sent into the landfill is not necessarily have to be there. Because what goes into the landfill is what you see ignite or aid in the burning of the methane gas in the landfill. If you take the very same material from your kitchen and you put in a bin in your house, around your house, and you watch how this same compost, when you put it into your vegetable, how that will grow, you'll be surprised to know that what you're doing is better for you to eat than what you use from the chemical fertilizer.
A message from Grenada Solid Waste Management Authority on the occasion of the International Composting Awareness Week.
Welcome back to The Point. We're speaking with Farmers Representative in the Senate, the Honorable Senator Roderick St. Clair. Senator St. Clair, let me make sure we can hear you still.
Yes, I'm here. I think the connection looks a lot better right now. The feed looks better.
Good. Nice to know. All right, so let's get back into the discussion. I want to go back to the Predia Larceny Fund.
Yes.
When was it supposed to be launched? And how is it that it's not being used in the way that it should be used?
Well, there are two things I would say is that I didn't go previous to 1995 version of the Act. But the 1995 version, clause 17, shows me that. So I need to maybe go back to a previous one to see if it was there before. And if it is there, the question is, in terms of whether it's functional or not, I'm not too sure, because if it's working, I would say it like this. Because remember, it's a magistrate, it's a legal system to invoke that clause and say, hey, I charge you, you cannot pay. So according to such and such, the magistrate then do the recourse and instruction. So if the magistrates are not requesting that support from the finance ministry or through the Ministry of Agriculture to advise the Minister of Finance, then of course you cannot blame the government and the Minister of Finance. That's the judiciary has to do the work. So the question is, does the fund have any funds? Has funds been going in there? Because for funds to go in there again, the funds have to come from persons to put into the fund. You understand what I'm saying? It had to be from Blossom didn't pay her bill because she stole and she paid late. So when she pays, these funds goes into there. The question is, was funds going into there? So I'm not too sure. So these are some questions that the farmers want to find out. I'm not too sure if Senator Clouden had any answers back then as to the status, but farmers are still asking the question. So it means that I have to try and find the answers because that is within my responsibility to my farmers and fishers. Mm-hmm.
In terms of monitoring its use and holding let's say the administrators accountable for how it is disseminated, what does the Act provide for? Because it will be run under the Ministry of Finance?
Well, yes. It's a government account. It didn't speak about that, but I would like to think that once it's within the financial construct of the government system, whatever other things has to kick in terms of management of it, as with any other account, I expect to happen. We're not saying that there is a problem with it. We're not saying that it disappeared. That is not. All we're saying is that, does it exist? If it exists, how can our farmers able to benefit from it? Because a lot of times, sometimes the persons that have stolen items, they don't have money to pay, and they may not be able to pay right now. So at some point when they do pay, this money must go somewhere, and the funds exist. Now, if the fund doesn't exist, then the magistracy would not able to accept these funds, because where do they put it? Or do they hold it in the courthouse and they say, farmer, come and collect it? I don't know. But we would want to know And these are some of the things you see from farmers and general people in public. If you don't have information, sometimes you think funny things. So I like to say, let's find information, let's get clarification from those who know, and then based on that, we can better respond to things. So that is what I will say here. I'm not sure if you have any other questions and matters I said before, if you want me to move on to another issue.
Actually, I do. In terms of the price of chicken and chicken products on the market,
Yes.
Since the increase in price for chicken feed and a number of our poultry products, including eggs in some places, the price of chicken per pound in some places as well. Is there anything that can be done? Because I know discussions are continuing between government and the relevant parties. Is there anything that can be done in the meantime while the discussions go on and before a conclusion is given?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a few things. I mean, as I mentioned, I think the issue of the VAT, it's within government purview to have a moratorium, if it's a year or 2 years in the first instance, to create a ease of the pain. I think that is one area. As I mentioned, the issue of support with labor. Because as in fact, what one of the farmers said, which is their words, is, farmers have many different jobs to be done on the farm, whether it's record keeping, whether it's picking up eggs, whether it's slaughtering. And so they are asking for deep consideration from the government labor support system, whether it's through Imani, depending on what the mechanisms are, to assist. Because if you look around, you have Imani teachers, Imani this, Imani that, Imani even in the pre-Lasini, and so on. So what is wrong? And maybe we have not been asking. So we are asking now. Maybe we have not been asking. So we are asking now for that sort of support to be rendered to a vital industry, agriculture. Because if you don't take care of agriculture, as a child, as I would have said in my maiden speech when I started off in this journey in October last year, October, November, what do we expect of this child? What do we expect? And so if you look around and we speak about the stimulus package coming again, and I listened to the Prime Minister very clearly last night, and I hope I heard him properly. I'm hearing a lot of stimulation around the sector of tourism. We're not saying it wouldn't agitate things, But rather than saying, well, you will get some benefit too, But for once, make the benefit direct to, because we do need it. We do need it. So this sort of thing, I don't know if it's lack of information. I don't know if I don't know, because sometimes you may wonder why certain things not happening, and you may realize it's lack of information. And if there is need for information, if there is need for dialogue, we are open to sit and share and bring this state of affairs in such manners. Because you see, we all need some form of assistance in different ways. And the whole agriculture do need. It doesn't mean it's carte blanche, but there are different areas if we can find out. And these are some of the areas that is reducing labor. Look at the VAT. The issue with the fishing is a very tough one. It's a difficult one, because I could say let's call on the government to help us with the fishing industry to reduce to make a flight come in. After you do it once, twice, 3 times, I have a discussion. It's unreasonable. But maybe if the government can assist and say, let us see how we can set up a factory to do saltfish, then that helps that's a national ongoing process that you don't have to be doing repeatedly. It doesn't mean they do it directly. It could be how do we attract investors, or do we provide some environment, or there's ways that those things could be discussed. So that is key in some of the areas we think that we could have the reduction in the price. And then also, how do we guarantee markets through school feeding programs, government institutions. We could jump high, we could jump low. Government is one of the biggest consumer of many things through their whole procurement system. So we need to look at that and put the support where support is due. You know, you can't want that tree to grow well and you're not fertilizing it. It will never grow well unless there is some innate qualities that would help it grow naturally. You know.
All right, let's take some questions from our viewers and listeners. Let me go to a Facebook question first. Somebody on Facebook is asking, I want to zero in on an island between Sitters and Carriacou, namely Aileron, where fishermen from Sitters catch fish by net, sometimes up to 15 boats of fish, but they don't have market for their catch and a way to communicate with the mainland when they have such a catch. They will light a fire, sending that message. Can you commit to helping these fisher folk on that island with telecommunication and market for their catch?
Okay, I really like that because Aileron, and I only become aware of Aileron when a young boy, you had our late George Brizan, his soul rest in peace, would have gone on a tour there with some boat. I didn't make that visit, but I did other visits with him and he was touring as the Minister for Agriculture. And I'm aware of other persons who have went there. At my previous stint in work, I would have interfaced with some of the farmers there who do some lovely watermelons and so on. On the issue of jacks, I'm not too sure if this person is speaking about current, I'm just speaking of past, because I know that there's a connect out at the fish market in St. Patrick's and Sotters that had some connect with the folks in Aileron. If they are doing a lot of jacks, this is very good. Because I know we have one of our major fishermen out in Guave, who is involved, and there are many others, but I know he's a main person who involved in the whole issue of jacks and so on. And they would normally sell the jacks for bait because jacks are a very important ingredient for bait, so for fishing, live bait. So if that is the case, then I would like to able to connect with these persons in that regards. If they have communication issues, we need to meet with them and find what are the challenges and make that connection. And I am very open and ready for that. So if the person who is messaging you can leave a contact, they can reach me on 405-2474. They can also do that. I'll gladly intervene because for my role, a lot of things I don't know. I mean, and the more I know and get those sort of connect, it would help me. I really appreciate that information.
All right, let's go to the phone line. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, Senator. Let me congratulate you on your selection to that position. I think you, at this time, you're one of the better choices that they could have made based on your, just one moment please, let me turn this off. Based on your history of advocacy and proactivity in terms of agriculture. And you continue even now to try your best. But let me tell you, you are faced with a mammoth challenge. Let me give you a little advice, if I may. The first thing I want you to do for me is undertake a little audit, and in your capacity as a senator, you should be able to get that information. Do a little audit of the organizational chart for the Ministry of Agriculture. Look at the number of positions in that chart that are supposed to be filled and that are not filled. Also go drill down a little bit more. Look at the requirements in terms of qualifications for the holders of the positions that are filled. Compare it with the qualification of the current holders. Then I want you to compare that with what obtained 10 years ago. And this will explain to you why we are where we are in agriculture. So that Ivan came, we couldn't capitalize. COVID came, we couldn't capitalize. Volcano came, and we still can't even help St. Vincent, who fed us for the last few years. Structure is needed. What you're doing is useful, but it will go nowhere you will get frustrated unless we address the root cause of the demise of agriculture and get the authorities and the policymakers to understand what they have done, how they have presided over the demise of the sector over the past 20 years. We're not getting anywhere. Do that audit for me, please, brother. You have the authority to do it. Start with that. And then your eyes will be opened to why we are where we are today. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The caller is so much on point, and so when again during the budget debate in December, I spoke of, you know, the Minister for Agriculture. He has energies. We discuss a lot. I share a lot of ideas and so on, because I need him to succeed for our farmers to be better. You know, it's not about doing anything, and I will never in any way do things about negative about the sector, because I live in it, I grew in it, and there are many others who are living on this side, surviving from it. And so we share a lot of ideas, we discuss challenges, and I say, look, I think we could do so. And this matter, when I said that he's standing up on Bear Jack, maybe people may think that was a joke, but he is on Bear Jack. This scholar has basically clarified it even more. You have a Ministry of Agriculture whereby significant individuals has gone on retirement. And I will tell you, part of the problem with the Prida Lassini also stemmed directly inside of that. You had the land use officer, Mr. Baptiste, I'll call his name. He's gone on retirement. He was the chairman of the internal committee there when I was the chairman of the advisory committee. And he was the chairman of the internal committee within the ministry. And he was very instrumental in getting things done. You had Mr. Kelly Patrick. You know, people may have the different views about Mr. Patrick, but in my interaction when he came to Prida Lassini, he was on the ground and he was doing a lot. And of course, with the support from Minister Bola back then. And I saw some things happening. So, and it was very clear that Mr. Baptiste retired, and that went into a hole. And that's any position was not have been filled in terms of the substantive role, but that leadership he was providing with the whole thing. So if you look at the Prida Lassini Act now as amended, with all these committees and subcommittees, that was an initiative that was started by him and implemented so as to create a better organization and enforcement for Prida Lassini, to make the Ministry of Agriculture become more proactive. That first part of the act there. It was part, when I say by him, well, of course, the ministry, but it would have been under his leadership. So Patrick has left. And that would have gone. So I just raised these two issues. And then you have Mr. Daniel Luis, the Chief Agriculture Officer. He is like the CMO. So imagine you have no CMO in the middle of COVID. The whole country will panic because who is that official voice to listen when he comes? He's a technical man. So here you have the technical expert would have retired. Of course, but we know he retired because we all know our data bots. I was spoken about that in our budget debate. This is not new information. That position is yet to be filled. And is yet to be filled if you look at the budget of expenditure and estimate and expenditure of our budget, and you go and you look at the Ministry of Agriculture, the work plan that they have committed to, that both the lower house and the upper house would have passed. So that is law. That is the roadmap to execute. Because it's budgeted for to hire someone, okay? So it's not something that they're doing that you didn't cater for. It was catered for. So if you do it, nothing wrong, you wouldn't be jailed for doing it because it was catered for, it was passed. I involved in voting for it, everything, because we supported it. Up to now, that position is not filled. So then the government speak about, and people speak about implementation, but that is an implementation issue. Implementation issue is not only about procurement and fixing roads and building big construction sites. It's about all of these things. Yes, it's a procurement of a person. Maybe there is nobody in Grenada, and maybe we have to advertise the position globally? I don't know. Because I know I'm not the minister of agriculture, I'm not the government. But that position needs to be filled. Because with all the effort the minister is making, he would be like on a sinking sand because he doesn't know where next to go, or maybe where he may go may not be the best place to go now. Because you need technical persons to advise you on that. And he needs to really advocate for that. That is a problem. And the problem that also leads, it would lead to frustration for your other officers who look for that guidance from that person. And so the caller here is right. We don't even have, yes, the audit will be done, but before we even reach the audit, we already see the issues. And then you have a series of other officers who have been retiring, and the replacement for them, everyone knows. All that is implementation.
All right, let's go back to the landline. All right, no calls on the landline, so let me go back to WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp asks, what serious practical steps are you taking to resuscitate the agriculture industry? We seem to have regressed. It can cost less to eat nice, delicious, great quality bananas daily overseas in places where bananas don't grow, but what appears to be wishful thinking in Grenada.
Yeah, well, you see the issue about it, and it must be understood as a senator. I'm not the government. I'm not a government senator. I'm not the advisor to the government. I'm not, I don't have an office of a vote of monies to spend and to get things done. My whole role is to represent, and representing in this context means to communicate, to discuss, to lobby, to look and see how we can modify laws and all of those type of things. These are, so in terms of what the sister, the brother is saying, is a good question. And I would have to do this, what I'm doing here, and try to convince. That is the most I can. I cannot say, well, let me write a check and say, let's go and get 40 acres of bananas planted up, and let's get 40 laborers to go in the farm and help. Of course, if I have the privilege of being there, I am a man of action. We'll get things done. If he had to get done. So this is my response, but I appreciate the question. I would like to hear the government respond to that particular question. As I say, I'm always ready and willing to help and support, give ideas and whatever enabling, because that is the most I could do. People say you're fooling yourself, and of course he's right, because what it can do. But we understand our role, and that's the most important thing in anything you're doing. Once you understand your role, you want me to go and say, let's go and clean up some lands. And yes, we could do this, but is that a sustainable approach? You're trying to have a government instead of government. That doesn't really add. But I want to make a quick point, and as we hear the Blossom, the whole issue of the land bank, because we see the government finally starting up a land bank, I think in Diamond Estate and in Grand Bacolet, and it's good. I compliment the government on that. But of course, I have some concerns, which I would have expressed in a press release late last week or early this week, to the effect that this has to be market-driven. It must be purposeful. And I was speaking to someone only this morning, and they said, we have to look at flowers. There's other opportunities in flowers. And exactly. So the point is, if we have that land bank program, which is okay, and we're not going to be involved in agricultural enterprise that are going to be addressing core issues that we have, whether it's in livestock, whether it's in beekeeping, whether it's in floriculture, and not going and plant as that cabbage and lettuce and tomatoes again, then I think the Ministry of Agriculture have to be very careful. And that is why you come back to the whole issue of your chief technical officer, who is going to say this is the technically correct thing to do. Now, sometimes the government don't listen. Sometimes they do. But no, there is no point of reference to say that there was an advice. It's like doing something without consulting your lawyer. I say, shoot, if I didn't consult my lawyer, I might have win the case. So it's a guess game. But I complimented this action on that. And of course, the land use policy is a matter that needs to be acted on. It's my understanding that there is some works going on. But farmers say they want to see results, because at the end of the day, you're telling me to run myself as a business, but the systems we spent a lot of time over the last, say, 10 years speaking a lot about doing business climate in Grenada, all the different ratios and to get a business rating, to attract business. So quick, easy to start up. What are the indicators for doing better agriculture in Grenada? We need to look at that and see what are the limiting factors that hinder us from where we need to go. And if we really do an assessment, we realize that we have been held back in a lot of ways for reasons that sometimes people blame Prime Minister, they blame Minister. Some of these things sometimes has nothing to do with them when you do your own internal investigation, as I have done in some cases. But of course, they are the leaders. They are there to see the flaws under the. But sometimes they say closer to the church for the vanguard, you don't know what is happening. I mean, it happens to any one of us. But I would say we need to be proactive and purposeful. And that is how we're able to get results.
Good morning, caller.
Morning, Blossom. Morning, Honorable Sinclair. The problem in Grenada is that we have government is run helter-skelter. There's no order, there's no purpose. I want to ask you a few questions. There's so many questions I could ask when time comes. One of it is that can you speak to whether we have a national agriculture policy that links the issue of food security, that links the whole water security of all the various aspects, and linking it within the context that we are a risk country in terms of climate change and all the stuff that go with it, the volcano, tsunami, earthquake, that we have anything that really speak to what are we doing now and how are we going to respond in the case of anything like recently, like you had a volcano that we had the threat of the ash in our water system and so on. How are we doing anything to deal with that? And then there's a few, Blossom, don't cut me off, I won't say long. In terms of have there been any discussion with you in relation to the impact on farming and even water on the proposed or the impending geothermal project? That is one. And then the next one that is evading me now, but also I want to make, and I kind of slightly disappointed with you now because you talk about market-driven. When it comes to food, we should first think about feeding our people first, and then secondly. I heard two ministers in different periods. In 2005, soon after Hurricane Ivan, the minister then was Honorable Gregory Bowen, speaking in relation to Grand-Baz and Sainsbury supermarket. He said then that what we can't go, what we shouldn't go just for going, so we should go what the market wants, not what the environment wants to deal with, but what the market wants. And then recently, the new Minister of Agriculture was talking about Grand Bargain, and you were talking about the market again, looking to our Trinidad and all kinds. Okay. Ensure that we have food to feed ourselves in the context of all the uncertainty facing us. Okay. We should be very happy now to say to St. Vincent, thank you very much. We'll help you until you're able to maneuver the situation. But we can't even do that.
Thank you very much.
Some quick responses to those points. The geothermal thing, I can respond to that. The Grand-Baz estate and the market-driven, the Grand-Baz estate, I am aware of some of the discussions that are happening there. I know they are looking at it from a holistic approach in terms of what is the solution to the whole food security and so on. So I know there is a lot of work going on, discussion, and I'm on the fringe of that discussion. Market-driven don't mean about export. Market-driven basically is purpose for you. So whether you're going to use it for value added, whether you use it for livestock, what would be the end result downstream? So I think that is what is the truest meaning. That doesn't just mean export. In terms of the disaster, I know there was an agriculture disaster plan. I'm not too sure what is the status of it. I know my good friend Raul Charles, when he was at the ministry, he was leading that charge. So this is something to be looked at. In terms of that agriculture policy, I know there's a food and nutrition security policy that was way back in 2011, but it's a policy, it doesn't change. Of course, there is a agriculture development plan, 2030, I think it is, developed by Mr. Fitzroy James. You can go online and you can easily find it. So that it lays out that sort of roadmap for the next 15 or 20 years. And also I am aware and I've participated in this whole issue with the water policy and all of those things with, I think it's Mr. Smith, the engineer there, and Mr. Well, they call him Spanner. He knows what I'm talking about. Can't remember his correct name now. They've done a lot of work with GIZ and that, and I've been involved in some of that dialogue. So, and it's about connecting, but not just about the water policy, but it's about the regulation and the environment and all of those impact, agriculture, water, grey water, all those different things. It's just that some of those things take a long time. And sometimes, I say I'm not a politician, but what I discover now is that sometimes you need to say, look, this will happen, but it cannot happen now because there is this 40 different things that need to take place before it happens. And so we need to explain these things to individuals. Otherwise, we build the expectations and it takes forever to happen. And you're really fighting hard to make it happen. But you know there are issues. So, for example, in land use policies, I was amazed to learn only recently that the amount of work that needs to be done with this land use policy that we're speaking about is going to happen tomorrow. It may happen maybe, I don't know to say a time, but it has a long time to take place. We may have an idea. We may have some drafting, but the true land use policy, there's a lot of legislations and so on that need to take place. So we need, and a lot of pullback in Grenada is because in legislation, government cannot do certain things. And then when you realize it's contravening another law, and do we have enough persons in the legal department? And that is an area maybe we sit by and we don't pay much attention to it. But it's important because it helps to enable agriculture, education, whatever other systems in the country. And maybe we need to let people understand that the legal part, there's a long process. I don't know if we have enough draft people. If we need to have, there are a lot of lawyers in the country. Maybe we need to have some of them on retainer to fast track certain things. But that is a major issue, this legislation. And then you still have to come to Parliament, which is a whole other discussion. And then, depending on it, you have to go to consultation, which is the correct way. So you'll see what happens.
Senator Sinclair, we've come to the end of the program this morning. You have 10 seconds. Final thoughts.
Well, I will say I thank you so much, Blossom, for keeping your commitment true to form. You say, Sinclair, you say every month you have to be here. And I really appreciate being able to come here and share with our farmers and what is going on. If we had an earlier plan, I've been speaking to the folks in the Flower Association to have one of them come along with me. Let us educate the community. Let us inform what is going on in the flower. So next time we're going to do this, let's kind of put them on notice early so that we could have them be part. I don't only want to be here myself, because they are also part of this system. So I thank you so much. I wish everyone a very good rest of the week, good weekend. Stay safe and keep healthy all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Sinclair. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
Thank you so much.
That was the farmers' representative in the Senate, Senator Roderick Sinclair. Thank him so much for being our guest. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in to The Point this morning. And that's the end of the program and the end of my time here. Enjoy the rest of your thankful Thursday. Mid-Morning Buzz is up next. Enjoy.